Before we get into today's edition of Just the Truth, let me tell you about the latest special from Mike Lindell at MyPillow. The standard MyPillow, normally $49.98 for a limited time only, just $14.88 with promo code Joey. Go to MyPillow.com, click on the radio listener specials, and see all the specials. There's a limited quantity of just 10 at this special price. That's $14.88 with promo code Joey. Thanks for joining me in the PhD Weight Loss Studio. To lose weight for the last time, visit myphdweightloss.com. Luigi Mangione's former roommate struggles with the suspected killer's action, saying it's two different people, as he talked with Jess Waters about his former roommate and the arrest. Also, the suspected shooter's manifesto lends insight into the disdain he has for the healthcare industry. We'll learn more about what could possibly have been his motive for the alleged massacre-style shooting of United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson. And finally, the Pennsylvania lawyer who's representing Mr. Mangione says he will consider representing him in New York as well, even though he's only licensed presently to practice law in Pennsylvania. The old saying, every vote counts, was proven to be true in some South Carolina legislative races this year. And we'll visit with South Carolina GOP Chairman Drew McKissick to talk about the final certification of some close races in this year's election.
I told you we'd be back.
And ye shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free.
It's Joey Hudson.
I wanted to name it the Joey Hudson bill, but, you know, they don't allow you to put names on bills. But I wanted to call it the Joey Hudson bill because I know that one's been near and dear to you for a number of years.
That's how it's done. Let your voice be heard.
And the truth shall set you free.
Here's Joey Hudson.
Everyone seems to be infatuated with the suspected killer of United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson. It's like we can't get enough info on who this young man is and why he would upend his life by allegedly gunning down Thompson on the streets of New York. Luigi Mangione's former roommate said that the suspected killer's actions were, quote, incompatible with the person he knew, saying that it was like two completely different human beings. R.J. Martin, he's the former roommate of Mangione, discussed on Fox News' Jess Waters primetime his time with the Ivy League graduate turned suspected killer of United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson, saying that the pair were close friends and shared common pastimes together. He said, it feels strange because he was a great friend and I considered him a close friend. And that's someone who would assassinate somebody is completely incompatible with the person that I live with, the person I cook meals with, and the person that was part of the book club and other activities with. It's like it's two completely different human beings, he said. Martin said that to his knowledge, Mangione did not do drugs. Fox News obtained the police report which detailed a lot of the manifesto that Mangione wrote prior to allegedly shooting the CEO. The 3-page manifesto attacked the healthcare system as well as attacking corporate greed. The Ivy League computer science major wrote that he went after the 50-year-old CEO at the healthcare conference because of the public nature of the event. Mangione had struggled with back pain and the fallout from a spinal surgery, according to reports. Mangione is 26 years old, told former roommates that he had suffered from chronic back pain and a pinched nerve, according to a report in Civil Beat, a Honolulu-based publication. Mangione lived there for about 6 months in 2022. This, according to a former roommate, R.J. Martin, who told the outlet that Mangione's lower back problems affected him for years due to misaligned vertebrae that could sometimes pinch his spinal cord. Mangione told his roommate that he had gotten surgery after moving out of the surf break co-op where they lived together. Then he went radio silent, according to the roommate. NYPD Chief Detective Joseph Kinney said that Mangione may have sustained the injury on July the 4th of 2023, saying he was posting an x-ray on his social media. Some of the writings that he had, he was discussing the difficulty of sustaining that injury. Your World with Neil Cavuto interviewed Mr. Kinney. Kenny said, so we're looking into whether or not the insurance industry either denied a claim from him or didn't help him out to the fullest extent. In the manifesto, Mangione mentioned United Healthcare specifically, according to Detective Kenny. Meanwhile, Thomas Dickey, the attorney representing Luigi Mangione in Pennsylvania, said that he made a strong bond with his client during some of their personal meetings.
Yes, I did, and I'm pleased with our relationship. I think we've made a strong bond, and I'm looking forward to moving forward, helping him out.
How will you approach him?
I really don't want to get into that.
Is he saying he's innocent at this point?
He has indicated pleas of not guilty. The only charges that we've seen thus far have been the ones here in Pennsylvania, and we have pled not guilty to those charges. And
when asked what his first impressions of the 26-year-old were, Dickey said that he focused on forming a bond with his client. He said, "I wasn't looking for impressions. What I was trying to do was form a bond with my client. I want him to trust me, and I want him to be confident that I'm here for him." When asked by reporters if he would be willing to represent Mangione in New York, he said that he would, although he's not currently licensed to practice law in New York, but explained the process and explained that he could quickly satisfy that and be admitted to the New York State Bar. Dickey, who said that he had 41 years of criminal defense experience, would be able to do whatever Mr. Mangione requests him to do. According to the New York State's Unified Court System, attorneys may be eligible for admission on a motion if they have practiced law for at least 5 years out of the last 7 years, if they're admitted to practice in at least one reciprocal U.S. jurisdiction, and if they graduated from the American Bar Association approved law school. Now, my initial impression of this guy, and I watched two different interviews, one on the street outside of the jail, in which he had an impromptu news conference and then told reporters that he'd be holding a formal news conference in his office yesterday afternoon, which he did. And the guy was a little undecisive of exactly what was going on. At one point, he talked about no charges being filed in New York, although they have charged this young man, with murder. And they are trying to extradite him now. And another time, he seemed to be unclear as to whether or not his client had pled guilty or not guilty, and if in fact he was going to fight extradition. Dickey said that he has seen no evidence that his client is guilty of shooting United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson. When pressed by a reporter in the news conference of what Mangione is pleading guilty to, Mr. Dickey said everything that he's being charged with. Here's the exchange.
Can you just help us understand what do you expect him not to plead guilty to? Is this the murder charge or the charges in Pennsylvania?
If you charge a person, if the government charges a person with a crime, they have to prove that. Okay, and they have to have some evidence. All right, so we got it. Like I said, you can look on this table, and here's all the evidence I have right here, guys. So zoom in. I suppose you want to. Nothing. I've seen nothing. I have nothing, and we'll get that, and we'll take.
What is he pleading not guilty to? What charges?
Every charge,
Every charge, soup to nuts.
Every charge.
Later in the press conference, Dickey reiterated that he had not seen one scintilla, one speck, one drop of evidence. He told reporters, "Listen, I haven't seen any evidence that says he's the shooter, and I've seen zero evidence at this point, and so I'm not even aware of what any charges are." Mangione, of course, has been charged in Pennsylvania with one count of forging a document and criminally possessing a firearm. He was charged in New York with second-degree murder. He's pleaded not guilty to charges in Pennsylvania. We did learn that when police apprehended Mangione, he had a laptop and a backpack containing a firearm and silencer, or compressor, $8,000 in cash, $2,000 in foreign currency, a passport, and a fake ID. This, according to Blair County District Attorney Peter Weeks, said that the extradition hearing yesterday afternoon that Mangione was planning to fight that. Weeks later told reporters during a press conference that he's been collaborating with New York City prosecutors and law enforcement regarding Mangione's extradition to Manhattan, where he is charged with second-degree murder. Mangione made it very clear, and his attorney later made it very clear, that he will fight extradition to New York, but DA Alvin Bragg's office has vowed to get the young man to New York City to face justice as fast as possible. District Attorney Peter Weeks said, "We're going to do what's necessary to get the governor's warrant, and we're working with the New York City Police Department and the Manhattan DA's office. And we're going to get the defendant out there so that they can prosecute him on their charges, so waiving extradition accelerates that process." New York Governor Kathy Hochul said in a statement yesterday that she is deeply grateful to the men and women of law enforcement whose efforts to solve the horrific murder of Brian Thompson led to the arrest of a suspect in Pennsylvania. She said, I'm coordinating with the district attorney's office and will sign a request for a governor's warrant to ensure this individual is tried and held accountable. Public safety is my top priority, she said, and I'll do everything in my power to keep the streets of New York safe. Blair County Judge Dave Consiglio also denied bail for Mangione yesterday, so he will remain in the Pennsylvania jail until either he is tried in Pennsylvania or he is extradited to New York. Mangione's exit from the court was a lot less dramatic than his entrance, where he screamed and thrashed violently as officers attempted to control him. This was the first time we actually had heard the young man speak, and you actually see an officer at one point grab him by the back of the neck and force him through the entryway to get him into the courtroom for the initial hearing. So there's going to be a lot of coverage over this. This is a story that's going to be around for months and months to come, and we'll keep you updated every step of the way. If you've been putting off a visit to PhD Weight Loss, now's your time because it comes with an amazing free gift. Joey Hudson here. During December, the founder of PhD Weight Loss, Dr. Ashley Lucas, is giving the first 100 people to sign up for a consultation a free weight loss and energy supplement bundle. What a great gift. Do what I did. Take control now before heading into the indulgent holiday season. Get a grasp and avoid the holiday pounds. I dropped over 30 pounds, and I'm not worried about parties and overeating because my PhD coach taught me coping mechanisms to help me enjoy holiday events without gaining the weight. Best of all, I never took a weight loss drug. I'm not dependent on a prescription, and I was never hungry. PhD Weight Loss is not about depriving yourself. Lose the awful belly fat, gain energy, and avoid weight-related health issues. You will feel so amazing about yourself and truly enjoy the holiday season. PhD Weight Loss. Ask about the free gift when you book your consultation. Call 864-644-1900. That's 864-644-1900 or go to myphdweightloss.com. Your comments are welcome on the Firmin Ford text line, 864-477-JOEY. That's 864-477-5639. Emails always welcome, joey@joeyhudson.com. On our guest line, Chairman of the South Carolina Republican Party, Drew McKissick. Happy morning to you.
Man, happy morning to you, too. Hope you're doing well.
I am doing wonderful. What a weekend we had with football, the ACC tournament with the Clemson Tigers. That could not have been more exciting.
What would have made it better would have been if, South Carolina had managed to make it into the playoffs. But, hey, okay, whatever. I'm used to some disappointment. So,
well,
congratulations to my Clemson fan friends. So.
Well, and I'm married to one, and as I told her over the weekend, if Clemson feels okay with going to the playoffs, knowing they lost the state championship, I'm okay with it. I'm happy for them.
There you go. That's right.
So on to our political news here. Has everything been certified, and we know all the winners and the losers in the state contest now?
So just as of last week, so that the Senate District 29 race here in South Carolina was the last race to be certified due to a protest. So Democrat 22-year incumbent Gerald Malloy, he lost on election day to our Republican J.D. Chaplin by 279 votes. It changed by about 10 votes when they counted provisional ballots. But then when they did the mandated recount in Lee County, things swung by like 260 votes in another direction, and it closed the margin between them to, I think it was 87 votes, if I recall. The problem was, turns out, so the State Election Commission had to do a recount of Lee County's recount. And it looks like what did happen was the Lee County folks, number one, they did not zero out their test ballots on election day. And then when they did their recount, they double counted about 266 ballots. And this is in a county that Gerald Malloy won 70% to 30%. So obviously double counting ballots helped him. State Election Commission untangled all that, and the final result was J.D. Chaplin wins by 254 votes. So Gerald Malloy officially dropped his protest. We had lawyers all over it ready to go to court, and Fortunately, now at the end of the day, that was not necessary. And, just for folks who don't think that voting matters, I'd just like to point out, we picked up 4 Senate seats here in this state, again, giving us that supermajority for the first time in the Senate in 150 years. 2 of those Senate seats, we won by collectively less than 300 votes out of 100,000 plus cast.
Wow.
So clearly, getting out, turning out, voting, getting your friends to vote makes a difference. And it's now given us a filibuster-proof state Senate. So now we can move things forward in the Senate for Republicans and our conservative principles.
Yep. I happened to see Senator Thomas Alexander at a fundraiser over the weekend, and we were talking about he has some big plans for moving legislation through the state Senate this year.
Yes, he does. Yes, he does, and rightfully so.
Yep. And back to the recounts. I mean, it kind of gives you confidence that the system works the way it's supposed to when you have a recount like that, right?
Absolutely. So what the process and the way they determine this is, as you recall, you have a paper ballot here in South Carolina. You put it in the machine. It marks the ballot for you. You check it to make sure it's right, and then you feed it into the scanner on your way out the door. Well, that scanner takes a picture of every single ballot that gets cast. And every one of those paper ballots, you'll notice, has a unique barcode on it. So that way it can determine after the fact if anything had been counted twice. That was how the State Election Commission determined that 266 ballots had been counted twice. And so it was able just to remove those ballots from the total and then count them once. So very, very secure and very, very accurate. And I'm, thankful to say, since we've switched to those machines, when they have done their audits, the random precinct hand count. So they have to pick a random number of precincts in each county, and they have to pull out the actual paper ballots, and they have to manually count those ballots and make it match the machine totals, make sure that they reconcile. And they do this in every county in the state, and we've had 0 skips in this last cycle, just like the previous cycle. So it's very, very reliable and very secure, and I'm thankful for it.
Yep. Let's move on to some of the nominations of President Trump for his new administration. A few hiccups in there, I guess you could say. Of course, we know Matt Gaetz withdrew his name for consideration for Attorney General. Now there seems to be some questions about Pam Bondi. Of course, we've heard some of the issues with Pete Hegseth for his position. That there's a number of members of the U.S. Congress who say, look, these are the people that President Trump wants in his cabinet. The American people spoke loudly. We need to give him his team so that he can go to work. What are your thoughts on some of these U.S. senators? Joni Ernst, for example, seems to be one of the holdups with Pete Hegseth. Do they have a duty, of course, to go through and I mean that's part of the process. But as far as the argument of giving the president who he wants and who he needs, what are your thoughts on that?
I think 99% of the time that's exactly right. I mean, unless there's some reason that just absolutely disqualifies somebody from service that somebody was not aware of previously. Donald Trump just won a national election. He not only won the electoral vote, he won the popular vote. He's got a mandate for change. He's got certain things that he wants to do. And he's had many, many years now to sit around and think about who he wants to be in those different positions and be able to vet people and decide who's going to be the best fit to carry out his policies in those different departments. As far as the Hegseth stuff goes, though, I'll just point out all of these things that have been said about him have been anonymous, all of them so far. And until somebody's willing to go into a hearing, raise their right hand, and take an oath under penalty of perjury that what they're saying is true, then it is all just that. It's just anonymous rumor and innuendo. And we've seen, this play out in numerous other confirmation hearings in the past. Go all the way back to Brett Kavanaugh and other stuff before that. At the end of the day, there needs to be a hearing, and senators can ask their questions, and then they need to vote.
Yep. Well, I think there is an argument to be made that, again, the people, this was a mandate, and so if we're going to hold him accountable to do the things we've asked him to do, then we've got to give him the team that he wants and move forward to get those things accomplished.
That's right.
Yeah,
that's right.
Drew McKissick, is always a pleasure. Appreciate your time today. And, of course, next week, the electors, you guys will be convening Tuesday of next week to vote and make it official.
Absolutely. Looking forward to it and casting South Carolina's non-electoral votes for Donald Trump. And as you point out, making it official and getting on the road to making America great again.
Yep, absolutely. Have a great week. We'll catch up again next week. Your comments are welcome on the Firmin Ford text line, 864-477-JOEY. That's 864-477-5639. Emails always welcome, joey@joeyhudson.com. Speaking of the Firmin Ford text line, it's never been more important to support locally run businesses owned by people who actually live here in the upstate. Let me take a minute to talk with you about our friends at Firmin Ford. If you're looking for a new vehicle, maybe a great pre-owned vehicle, one you can trust, or maybe you're looking to order that special vehicle. Either way, if you want a new one, a brand new one, or a pre-owned that you can trust, the folks at Firmin Ford, they're there to help you. Their name is on the sign because their name is on the line, because every single transaction is important to them. Jim Firmin, Matthew Firmin. They do business the right way. When you stop by, when you give them a call, or maybe when you just send them a quick email, you're always going to have access to a member of the Firmin Ford family. And by the way, they also offer great service, and you're not going to have to wait weeks and weeks to get it done. And you do not have had to purchase your vehicle at Firmin Ford. Doesn't even have to be a Ford. They service all makes and models. Visit my friends at Firmin Ford online at firminford.com, firminford.com. South Carolina Representative Nancy Mace was physically accosted on Capitol grounds last night, with the suspect now being under arrest. The alleged attacker has been identified as 33-year-old James McIntyre from the state of Illinois. According to the U.S. Capitol Police, the incident took place just before 6 p.m. in the Rayburn House office building. Officers with the threat assessment section quickly tracked down McIntyre and took him into custody on charges of assaulting a government official. Congresswoman Mace took to X shortly after the incident, saying, quote, "I was physically accosted tonight on Capitol grounds over my fight to protect women. Your threats will not stop my fight for women," she said. Mace has been outspoken in her efforts to protect women's spaces, including her opposition to allowing transgender individuals to use bathrooms that do not align with their biological sex. Recently, she led a push against Representative-elect Sarah McBride, a Delaware Democrat who is a biological male identifying as a woman, from using women's restrooms on Capitol Hill. Last month, Mace reportedly received death threats over her stance, stating that she was unfairly targeted. She also introduced Resolution H.R. 1579, which would prohibit House members and staff from using facilities that do not correspond with their biological sex. This incident is yet another disturbing example of the violence and the attempts at intimidation that are being directed at those who stand up for women's safety and biological reality, actually. Over the past year, we've witnessed a story that cuts right to the heart of what's going on in our cities and the kind of upside-down justice system we're facing under the soft-on-crime policies. We're talking, of course, about Daniel Penny, a Marine veteran, a hero in my book, who finally sat down for his first interview with Judge Janine Pirro after being found not guilty in the subway chokehold death of Jordan Neely. Now, if you haven't been following this story, let me just do a quick summary, catch you up. Penny was on a Manhattan subway in 2023 when Jordan Neely, who, by the way, had a long criminal history, a warrant out for his arrest, and was high on drugs at the time, he began threatening to kill passengers on the subway. Mr. Penny, seeing a dangerous situation unfold, did what any brave, trained Marine would do. He stepped in to protect innocent lives. In his interview with Judge Janine, Penny laid it out plainly. He said he was just threatening to kill people. He was threatening to go to jail forever, so I knew I had to do something. Here's Daniel Penny.
He was just threatening to kill people. He was threatening to go to jail forever, go to jail for the rest of his life. And now where I'm on the ground with him, I'm on my back in a very vulnerable position If I just would have let him go, now he turns.
Why is that a vulnerable position?
Well, if I just let him go, I'm on my back now. He can just turn around and start doing what he said to me. So
killing,
hurting.
Now take a minute and think about that. You're on a subway train, and someone is making those kinds of threats, threatening to kill people, threatening to hurt people, and apparently made it very clear he didn't care if he spent the rest of his life in jail. Penny had Neely in a chokehold while he was on his back, which, as he describes, as a vulnerable position. He knew that if he let Neely go, it could have turned deadly for him. That Jordan could have carried through one of his threats. Judge Deneen then asked him why he decided to get involved that day on the subway.
What in you caused you to want to get involved?
I mean, I'm not a confrontational person. I don't really extend myself. I think this type of thing is very uncomfortable. All this attention and limelight is very uncomfortable, and I would prefer without it. I didn't want any type of attention or praise, and I still don't. Mm-hmm. The guilt I would have felt if someone did get hurt, if he did do what he was threatening to do, would never be able to live with myself. And I'll take 1 million court appearances and people calling me names and people hating me just to keep one of those people from getting hurt or killed.
And you could just tell watching this interview, and this was just a excerpts from it. As I understand it, it will be aired on Fox News in its entirety later today. But you could just tell that Daniel Penny is just struggling with this whole thing. He's in a position he doesn't want to be. He wants his life to just go back to a quiet, normal life prior to this. So here's another example of a bad guy, a guy who, as I mentioned, had warrants for his arrest, and he's about to hurt someone on a subway. You have a trained Marine step in, and now his life was about to be ruined. Thank goodness that this jury came through in such a big way. And you could tell that Daniel Penny is the type of person that had he not done something and someone else had been hurt, he said, the guilt I would have felt if someone did get hurt. He's that kind of person, I believe, that he took this personally. And if he had sat there and let something happen to someone else, I think it would have haunted him for the rest of his life, probably worse than what he's going to have to deal with for the rest of his life for what Alvin Bragg has done to him. It's not going to be easy to just say, okay, thank you, jury, for finding me not guilty. I'll get back to my life now. This guy has a lot to deal with for a long, long time. He said in the interview that he'd face 1 million court appearances, 1 million people calling him names, if it meant saving just one life. I don't think that was him posturing. I don't think, as he said, he wasn't looking for recognition. And you could tell he was very uncomfortable sitting there being interviewed by Judge Deneen. This is not a guy who likes to seek out attention. And let's be real. New York City has become a lawless jungle under the watch of these woke politicians and district attorneys like Alvin Bragg. We're talking about a place where 20 people were shoved off of subway platforms in the year leading up to Penny's encounter with Neely. 3 days before this incident, someone was stabbed on a train with an ice pick. People are scared to ride the subway, and for good reason. But who does Bragg decide to prosecute? Not someone like a Jordan Neely. People like Neely are allowed to wreak havoc on a daily basis, to have people in their own city afraid to ride their own subway system. Bragg goes after Daniel Penny, the guy who stepped up to protect his fellow New Yorkers. That's the backward justice system we have under these soft on crime policies and these woke politicians like Alvin Bragg. And why they allow him to continue in New York is just a real mystery to me. Penny didn't hold back. He called out Bragg's prosecution as, quote, politically motivated and said these policies have clearly not worked. He pointed out that the general public knows these policies are a disaster, but that the politicians are too arrogant to admit when they're wrong, and boy, is he right.
These public officials would do something so self-serving.
But how does it serve them to hurt you?
Just political gain. I mean, these are their policies that are, and I don't mean to get political. I don't really want to make any enemies, really, although I guess I have already. But I mean, these are their policies that have clearly not worked, that the people, the general population, are not in support of, yet their egos are too big just to admit that they're wrong.
Boy, he nailed that one, didn't he? Because that's exactly Alvin Bragg. His ego will never allow him to admit that he's wrong. Just like in the case with President Donald Trump. Alvin Bragg will never admit that was all politically motivated. Now let's talk about that for a minute. Let's talk about this double standard for a minute. When Neely, a man with a history of violent crime, is allowed to roam free and threaten people, the system shrugs. They look the other way. They make excuses because he is a poor man on the street and addicted to drugs. But when Daniel Penny, a decorated Marine veteran, a humanitarian, steps up to protect innocent lives, he's dragged into court and painted as the villain. Witnesses even testified during the trial that they were genuinely scared for their lives. One witness, Yvette Rosaria, said that Neely shouted that someone was going to die that day, and she was terrified, she said. This wasn't just a random subway rant. This was a real threat, and Daniel Penny did what he had to do. He stepped in and tried to help his fellow citizen. And let's not forget who Daniel Penny is. He's a Long Island native, a Marine veteran who received a humanitarian award for helping hurricane victims. He's a guy who worked 2 jobs while studying architecture and played in his school orchestra. His friends describe him as calm and empathetic. Exactly the kind of person we want stepping up when things get dangerous, right? And not the kind of person that Alvin Bragg needs to go after. Thankfully, the jury saw through this. They saw through this politically motivated nonsense and found Penny not guilty of criminally negligent homicide. Justice prevailed, but it should not have come to this. This young man should have never been put through this ordeal. And let me tell you something. If our cities keep demonizing the good guys while letting the bad guys go free, we're going to see fewer people willing to step up and protect others, and that is a dangerous future. Have you finished with your Christmas shopping yet? Well, I have some good news for you. MyPillow is glad to announce that their Christmas extravaganza is continuing. Get this season's flannel sheets for as low as $59.98 when you use promo code Joey. And they're not going to last very long at this price. The famous My Slippers, they haven't been on sale for over a year. They're regularly priced at $119.98. Now, with promo code Joey, you can get them for $59.98. And the 6-piece towel set, these towels, you've heard me talk about them. They're very soft, but yet they are absorbent. Most times, you're not going to get a towel this absorbent. When you use promo code Joey, when you go to MyPillow.com or call 800-893-4059, you're going to get them for just $29.98 with promo code Joey. $29.98 for a 6-piece towel set. With hundreds of MyPillow products, there's something for everyone on your Christmas list. Bathrobes, duvets, quilts, down comforters, and so much more. Go to MyPillow.com or call 800-893-4059. Use promo code Joey to get the very best deal on every single item, and Merry Christmas to you. Let's take a look at some of our texts today. Albert writes, it's hard to imagine that there's outrage against McDonald's and the McDonald's employee who did what was the right thing to do. I hope that McDonald's attorneys will be able to track down and have those who are responsible for the lies that are being spread through social media prosecuted. I'll make it a point to go to a McDonald's this week. Now, Albert is responding to the story yesterday where people had been attacking and going online and posting false reviews where this Mangione guy was arrested. He was identified by a McDonald's employee who called the Altoona, Pennsylvania local police, and they came over, and that's where he was apprehended. This McDonald's has been subject to threats, to bad reviews. They've been bombarding all the online reviews saying that it was dirty, that there were bugs in the restaurant, and just all kind of nonsense like that. I don't get it. I don't get why they're taking this out on McDonald's. This guy just happened to be in a McDonald's when someone recognized him and knew that he was a dangerous guy. Ace writes, none of this makes any sense. Found at McDonald's days later with tons of incriminating stuff on his person? Come on. All that sounds absolutely ridiculous. No one would hang you on all that stuff with a note. If people buy that, I have some used toothbrushes for sale. I don't get, it did seem right after the shooting of Mr. Thompson, it did seem that this guy or the person, the shooter that we saw in the video, we don't know for sure yet if it is this Mangione guy. People who have seen the photos and studied the video seem to think it is. Law enforcement officials, that is. His attorney says it's not. But still, it initially appeared that this guy was kind of smart. The way that he very calmly walked across the street, went between two buildings, evidently got on a bicycle, either one that was he found or one that he had left there, bicycled a couple of blocks down into Central Park where he disappeared. It looked like he had planned his escape route. And it looked like he was teasing police officers by leaving the backpack out, for example. But who knows? No, it was not a smart thing for him to be caught with a gun that they believe was the weapon used in the murder, and some of the other items. So we'll see. Barry writes on the text line, this should be on everybody's to-watch list, 30 minutes a day. It should hook you in a week. He sent me a link to a video. I haven't had a chance to look at it. I'll share that with you when I do. He said you can't stop watching it, just like 98.9 is addictive. I like that. Thank you, Barry. He said, thank you, Joey, for all you do and all the guys and gals at the radio station do. I listen every day, all day long, and I listen to Clyde Lewis as well. He has a different point of view. I'm listening now as I text this to you. Sorry it's so long. If anyone would, Barry, this is Barry Wood. Have a great day. Thank you, Barry. Appreciate you listening. Keep those text messages coming. One more thing before we leave today on this story on the New York shooting. And this is absolutely sickening. But it shows you just how far the radical left is willing to go. We're talking about professors at some of the most prestigious institutions in the country celebrating, you heard me right, celebrating the cold-blooded murder of United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson. And it's not just a few isolated radicals. This mentality is becoming more common, and it's poisoning the minds of Americans' young people. Let's start with the facts. Last week, of course, 26-year-old Luigi Mangione is he's a graduate of the University of Pennsylvania. He is being detained, being accused of the execution-style Brian Thompson. The motive, it appears to be connected to the public's outrage over health insurance policies and denied claims. Mangione is now facing second-degree murder charges and a host of other offenses. But instead of condemning this brutal act and what someone did, and police say it was Mangione, some of these left-wing academics are celebrating. These so-called intellectuals who are supposed to be shaping the next generation actually applauded a murder suspect. Take for example, Julia Alex Sevilla, an assistant professor of English and cinema and media studies at UPenn. After Mangione was arrested, she shared a TikTok video smiling, yes, she was smiling, with the song, Do You Hear the People Sing? This is from the Broadway musical Les Mis. The caption, have never been prouder to be a professor at the University of Pennsylvania. She even referred to Mangione as the icon we all need and deserve. Folks, this isn't just unprofessional. It's sick. This is someone teaching kids, and she's glorifying a man who's accused of gunning down another human being in broad daylight. The fact that she had to lock down her social media accounts after this went viral, so she knows just how indefensible her actions are. But she's not the only one. Over at Columbia University, senior lecturer Anthony Zinkas posted on X mocking Thompson's death, saying, "Today we mourn the deaths of the 68,000 Americans who needlessly die each year so that insurance company execs like Brian Thompson can become multimillionaires." Now, what kind of twisted logic is that? Look, I don't like insurance companies any more than you do. Yes, I've had issues. We all, anybody alive today has probably had an issue with an insurance company at some point, not paying a claim exactly the way we think it should be paid. But I'm not proposing, and I'm not going to celebrate the death of an insurance company CEO. And in this case, instead of mourning a murder victim, Zinkas blames him for a system he didn't create. And then, when he got called out for it, he doubled down with even more vile commentary, sarcastically saying it's better to kill people by denying their insurance claims, so say, die slowly and in severe and excruciating pain. I mean, this is the kind of thinking that's being pumped into the minds of our students. These people are teaching kids in universities, and people wonder why our culture is literally falling apart. There's one other example I found. Taylor Lorenz, the former Washington Post reporter who's made a career out of being a professional left-wing agitator. Lorenz jumped on this bandwagon, posting on Blue Sky, and people wonder why we want these executives dead. Dead. He used the word dead. That's the level of hatred and vitriol we're dealing with. When Taylor was confronted by Piers Morgan, she didn't back down. In fact, she admitted she felt joy over Thompson's murder. Think about that for a minute. This isn't just political disagreement or frustration with the system. This is pure, unfiltered hatred for anyone who dares to succeed in the private sector. And again, like insurance companies or not, they are there to make a profit. And this isn't about one incident. This is about a radical ideology that's infiltrating our institutions, our universities, and even the media. The left's narrative is clear. If you're successful, if you work in the private sector, or if you're a business leader, you're evil. And to them, I guess that justifies violence. I told you yesterday that there's evidence that CEOs like Brian Thompson are beefing up their private security details, hoping that this is not a trend and that there are not other copycats out there wanting to reproduce what Mangione did. Who knows? That's it for today's edition of Just the Truth. Thanks for joining me in the PhD Weight Loss Studios. To lose weight for the last time, visit myphdweightloss.com. If you haven't joined my mailing list yet, visit my website, joeyhudson.com. Click on the Connect with Joey button so that you can receive our emails and the most up-to-date news. Also, join me on my YouTube channel. Be sure and like, comment, and subscribe. Just search for Joey Hudson. As always, thanks for spending a few minutes of your day with me. Do me a favor and forward this episode to a few friends. Just click on the share button and send to your contacts. We need to build an army of conservatives to win our country back, and we can do that by continuing to share the truth with our friends and family. Keep those comments coming via the Firmin Ford text line 864-477-JOEY. Email to joey@joeyhudson.com, and I love your messages on the MyPillow message line. Again, that's 864-477-JOEY, 864-477-5639. Be sure and take advantage of the MyPillow special, just $14.88 on the standard MyPillows when you use promo code Joey. Order online at MyPillow.com or call 800-893-4053. We're back again tomorrow and hope you'll plan to join us. Until then, remember, God's got this. He's still in control.